evening, everyone. Or good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. So this happened a little while ago. I managed to watch it during the lunch break of the Karen Reid trial. But given that the judge sent the jury home a little bit early, I decided to come live. I was going to do this tomorrow, but given I've got a little bit of extra time that Judge Bev has granted me, then here I am. So we've got some gifted memberships even before the stream started. Purple AJ yet again jumped in with 10 memberships. So we've got Michelle, A1 Way Street, Julie's Crafting, Nikki, Susan, Crazy Linda, Scott H, Sending You Good Karma, One Eye Floor, and Courtney. And also Krista hopped in. It's so generous before the stream even starts. A $49.99. You are too generous. Seriously. Very much appreciated. Very much. All right. So hello, everyone. Now, you may have seen this already. If you haven't, then it goes without saying, given this is Rex Heuermann's case, there's a trigger warning. There's a trigger warning to everything connected to this case, it seems. But the press conference was held by John Ray, who is an attorney in New York. He represents the family of Shannon Gilbert, who is one of the women who was found in the Gilgo Beach area. She's the person, like, unintentionally, that kicked off the entire investigation, because it was searching for her that they came across all these bodies. So they haven't connected Rex Heuermann to Shannon Gilbert. They think Shannon Gilbert died accidentally, although I'm not convinced. And certainly John Ray isn't convinced. He thinks that Shannon Gilbert and Rex Heuermann knew each other, which is possibly true, because Shannon was a sex worker and she made this 911 call before she went missing, saying that she was being chased. So it is suspicious. And John Ray also represents some of the families of the people who are alleging to have survived Rex Heuermann. Yes, there are survivors. And if you think back a while ago now, it's several months ago, John Ray did a press conference, and he didn't go nearly as far as he's done today, but he implicated Asa, who is Rex's wife, or ex-wife, because she's divorced him now, or it's in the process of, implicated her in some knowledge, but definitely as a swinger. So this is non-consensual, not non-consensual stuff, but consensual stuff, not the killings, but, you know, having, let's say, an alternative lifestyle. So that was eye-opening enough, and now we get this. So if you've seen the press conference already, well, I'm going to say I was shocked listening to it. I'm going to reserve my opinion till after, so that we know that everybody's seen it, and then everybody can give an opinion, you know, if you want to. And I'll do a poll afterwards. So, yeah. So let's just get into this, shall we? It's quite long. I'm taking this from WFLA. The link to this is already in the description box for replay viewers, and I'm going to put it in the chat now. The press conference starts at 34 minutes into this live stream, because JB goes live early to discuss, and he was live for quite a bit after, which I haven't seen yet, because I went straight back to the Karen Reid trial after the presser had finished. Bracing for impact. Yeah, brace for impact. All right. So the volume isn't great, especially when he moves away from the mic, because he's not got a mic. He's just relying on the media mics. So he keeps moving away. So the volume goes in and out. Don't blame me. There's nothing I can do about it. The volume's high from my end, and there's no CCs on it yet, unfortunately, because it does take a few hours for CCs to attach themselves to live streams, and this is not long since finished. You haven't heard anything yet? All right. Well, like I said, I'm going to reserve my opinion till the end, and take it away, John Ray.
Sorry. Tell me when you're all ready. When we're ready to go. You all ready? Good. Here we go. Good morning, everyone. The first thing is I please ask that we're going to make a presentation, and I'll try to speak as loud as I can since we don't have a mic ourselves and we're live streaming it. So I'll ask that all questions await the end of the presentation. Presentation is going to take a little bit, not as long as you were worried about, but indeed we have some other people here to talk about. With me today, to my right, is Dr. Gary Brucato, who is a clinical and forensic psychologist, researcher, and nationally known author for his work in the areas of violence, including serial killing, especially serial killing, mass murder, and sexual offenses, as well as severe mental illnesses. He's a visiting scholar at Boston College, an expert on the Cold Case Foundation panel. He's worked at Columbia University, the New York State Psychiatric Institute, and he's co-created the Columbia Mass Murder Database, the largest and most definitive study of mass murder ever conducted. He's written nearly 100 articles, peer-reviewed articles, and he's written a well-known book in this field called The New Evil: Understanding the Emergence of Modern Violent Crime. He co-authored that with another doctor. He's presently working in several forensic training programs, and he's a friend of mine, and he's been working with me on this case over the course of approximately a year. So he's here today to do some explaining and connecting of the dots that I'm going to put out there for you with what we have learned, what we have discovered. First, I have nothing but admiration for the work of the District Attorney Ray Tierney and his task force in their use of technology and DNA. But we disagree on two very important subjects: the murder of Shannan Gilbert and the suspicion of culpability of the family of Rex Heuermann. I've been the gatekeeper in this case, or these cases, going all the way back to the end of 2011 until now. And I'm going to continue in that role. And just so it's clear, because we've heard critics, I have not made one penny in this case from anyone, and the man I sued has no money. We will make no money in all the work that I have done from the beginning. We're not in this for the money, and never have been. I'm in pursuit of Shannan Gilbert's killers and the full truth and the facts and circumstances surrounding all of these murders, as I've been from the beginning. I represent that family, the Gilbert family, and I represent several victims' families of Rex Heuermann who survived him and were attacked by him or stalked by him. So I'm not here today, by the way, to just speak about exclusively about Shannon, but I'm here to speak about what we have discovered regarding one of the children and the implications of that for the family. Now, look, if you're of the school that you say all that happened to Shannon Gilbert was a coincidence, all those things were coincidences and circumstantial evidence only, no matter how strong the evidence was or is, you say it's not proof enough to suggest that she was murdered, then you don't stay here. You don't need to, and you don't need to watch this conference on streaming on the internet, because you will be disappointed. Most of the things that we know happened, we know from circumstantial evidence. And what we have here is circumstantial evidence. But if you're able to accept that circumstantial evidence can be strong, as a great lawyer once said, as when you find a trout in the milk, that circumstantial evidence can be filled with right-minded inferences, real inferences, inescapable conclusions. This conference is for you. I'm thinking I had a case with a newly constructed wall which tipped over and broke a worker's legs. And it wasn't hard to believe that the wall was defective, even though nobody saw it tipping. That's circumstantial evidence. That's what we have here. You will see today that Rex Heuermann's porn is matched by his daughter's tastes, his daughter's work. You will see that we are not talking here about, what should I call it? Merely murder. I say it ironically. We're talking about people who are involved and interested in torture, horrifying torture of the people we know are now dead, and many more yet to come. We are talking about the potentiality of cannibalism, hardcore. We are talking about the use of porno to effect what has happened. So allow me now to pull back the curtain. You know a person by the company he keeps. Do any of us deny that? You know a person by what they read, what they look at, and that's especially today with the internet, the choices they make, of which there are many. You know about people who agree with you, what you say, what you do, who have the same experiences as you have, who have done what you have done. We know you by the friends you keep. We know you by reputation, the things which in essence reflect you and your experiences. Now, this is Victoria Heuermann. All right, we're giving out this is the first packet. There will be two, and all of this will be online as well. So if we run out, forgive me. By the way, the full color ones were extremely expensive, and we have a budget. We say that the evidence we have, and this is just the beginning of the evidence you will see today, the evidence that we have suggests that we've been sold a story by the Heuermann family. Take a look at the first page and the picture that's to the right That's Victoria Heuermann as she tried to appear to the press when you first confronted her at the home in Massapequa Park. There she is in her little girl's uniform. She's 27 years old with a school bag draped over her, her hair in a nice little bun. Very innocent looking person. The other picture is also Victoria Heuermann, as she really is, as she portrays herself on the internet, as she actually looks. We've been sold a bill of goods. If you look at her artwork, in the top page, her artwork consists that she posted online of a human skull. That's just the beginning. After the indictments, oddly enough, and you folks took the picture, you see Victoria Heuermann walking out, I believe from her house. And I thought it was odd when I saw it. But you'll notice she's wearing a shirt that depicts, right after her father is indicted, for these murdered women, it depicts a human skeleton. That's what she's wearing. I'm going to show you what she's looking at on the internet. And please, do not indulge in moral posturing that I am merely shaming her, who is also a victim of sorts. And she is a victim for sure of her family. Don't do that because she's a 27-year-old woman who tore off the cloak of victimhood when she chose to take a handsome profit for herself and for her lawyer from Peacock for openly displaying the pretend picture of this innocent girl, little girl persona who had nothing to do with what went on in that house. She did that at the real victim's expense for a price. She herself marketed her false image. Her true self, a vastly different self, is fair game because of what she's done. What she has witnessed, what she has perhaps gone beyond witnessing, you draw the inference. I'm not going to feed it to you. You draw the inference. Here is my assistant and expert technician, Lena Odgett, who's going to explain to you these posters and how we came to acquire them and how we can be sure they are from the daughter. So I've introduced Lena, my assistant Nani, and Frances Nakotra, who's a co-administratrix for the estate of Shannon Gilbert and the estate of Mary Gilbert, and has worked with me on these cases for years. Now, Lena's going to talk to you about the technical side of these pictures.
We can be reasonably certain that the Tumblr blog, which is what these pictures come from, that the Tumblr account and blog in question, attached to the username Vinandimadtour, is operated by Victoria Heuermann for various reasons. First, we see from Victoria's LinkedIn her profile picture. This same profile picture is identical to a selfie posted to the Tumblr account. Vinandimadtour on June 10th, 2018, posted alongside art signed Victoria Heuermann, 12/1/15, as well as a clay modeling of a human skull. Second, Victoria, on her LinkedIn, links to a now defunct website with the URL www.vinandimodtour.art, which presumably once showcased her artwork. You'll notice that this website URL mirrors the username of the Tumblr account and is likely a reference to an Icelandic word or phrase, which I'll talk about later. For reference, Victoria's now deleted Instagram also used this handle username. The same website is also linked in Victoria's Tumblr's biography. If you navigate to Victoria's Tumblr, you will find a tab to view her posts, as well as a tab to view a list of the accounts she follows on Tumblr. Her posts consist of her artwork, some of which is included in the digital file that I will be sharing with everybody today, and printed for you in the packet we will be circulating. And on her Tumblr profile, a single reblog. A reblog on Tumblr is when one reposts a post from another blog onto one's own blog. This single reblog made by Victoria is from an account which specializes in the production and distribution of illustration furry pornography. The reblog post is of the user, which Victoria follows, advertising where their content can be found beyond Tumblr, right before Tumblr effected a ban on adult content. For those who are unfamiliar, a furry is someone who is an enthusiast for anthropomorphized animal characters, often portrayed in sexualized fashion. A sampling of this person's content can be found on the Twitter account ebchimera_adult. I might add that these images are not for the faint of heart. It is cartoon pornography, but it depicts various grotesque acts of bestiality. That this person produces grotesque cartoon hentai-style pornography is significant, as it is seemingly the only account with which Victoria has engaged publicly, deeming this person's content worthy of a reblog, and that according to the district attorney, Rex Heuermann himself searched specifically for hentai porn, searches which the DA described as sadistic. While Victoria's likes on Tumblr are not available for public review, some counts are, as she has chosen not to make hers public. We can look to the list of accounts she follows to inform us as to what kinds of images Victoria is viewing. Upon examination of the roster of accounts Victoria follows on Tumblr, nearly every account is focused on the circulation of furry art and images. Victoria has a preference for furry pornographic material and dark, macabre art, as seen on various accounts. And I'll go into some of these accounts right now. There's Ebony Chimera, a furry porn content creator, NIEH Furry, a furry content and furry porn creator. I guess I should be thankful. A furry porn and furry content creator who links to a fan fiction account of theirs on a website called Archive of Our Own, which publishes explicit content. This person's works and bookmarks displays a preference for fan fiction with the self-described themes of graphic depictions of violence, rape, child abuse, strangulation, underage prostitution, asphyxiation, and rough sex. Squeak Squad 524, a blog which describes itself as an art blog of Yiffertons, Yif and its derivations being slang terms used by furries to refer to pornographic content of anthropomorphic animal characters. Lilera, the account from which most of these images come, and it's an account which circulates disturbing images of gore, violent pornography, and other fetish content. The content creator describes themselves and their blog and their bio as a gore whore, with content warnings, self-described as extreme gore, hard vor, violence extreme, vor being cannibalistic imagery of a victim eaten alive. This is to quote the dictionary, the prey's flesh being ripped, chewed, or bitten, resulting in horrific injuries and often loss of life. According to a translator familiar with Scandinavian languages with whom we consulted, Victoria's account handle Vinan de Madtour may itself be an allusion to eating and consumption, a disturbing reference when considered in the context of the hard vor fetish content Victoria views and follows.
I'm going to take you through a few points. The rest of them speak for themselves. But if you don't mind, there are many pictures besides what I'm showing you that she's looked at that are equally as bad, if not worse. We just thought these.
You're off mic, John.
I'm off mic, so I'm going to shop.
Or
Because
you,
I'm gonna have to go to these.
you want to talk on the mic and then explain it? What do you?
Shall I just stay there and point? All right, I'll try.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you talk on the mic and say which picture and then we edit
you
the
say?
picture.
All right, fair enough. All right. I have to be able to see them. That's the trouble.
Do you want me to bring them to you?
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
yeah. The hanging one
You can hold them right behind them.
right there. Thank you. That's a good idea. We chose these pictures because of the significance in relation to Rex Heuermann as well as his daughter, Victoria. Take a look. It's people hanging. That's what she's looking at. But look particularly at this particular person hanging. There's a shoe missing. Sandra Castilla was found with a shoe missing. This seems to be a fetish that was indulged in by Rex Heuermann, a fetish that is depicted and looked at by his daughter. That's a connection. Yep. Perhaps this is a stretch and perhaps not, but look at the hairstyle and consider Rex Heuermann's hairstyle. But this is a picture of a person who's hung. Remember that Rex Heuermann is using points to hang people. This person is hung and disemboweled with a knife that's in the picture. Yep. This appears to be the remains of a human being that looks half eaten. Remember that Victoria Heuermann is on the internet reading words and looking at pictures that deal with hard vor. That is to say, cannibalism. If you look at the full color packet I gave you, there are other pictures in there that are so atrocious we didn't even put them up. Worse than what you see of people eating human flesh. In this picture, if you look, it has a strange familiarity when you see it, because the torso shows that the arm is chopped off at the elbow. And the head is, of course, disconnected as well. And the body is being cut up into pieces, the hands, and so on. Who does that match? Jessica Taylor? Valerie Mack? Entire slicing up as if it were for food. This is a picture of a female human body, completely disemboweled in the front, with her entrails hanging over her vagina and her legs chopped off. Some of the things that she was reading about, which I'm going to put before you in a moment, some of the things she's reading about was how, when these bodies were disemboweled and cut up, the torturer would have sex with the openings, such as in the leg. That's what she's reading about. And then, yep. This is very interesting. Here is a woman. There is a woman who's completely garroted by the horns of a deer head, which is a favorite theme in this book picture she's looking at. Deer, they have to do with witchcraft. And you can see what's happened to the woman. But notice, there's a marsh in the background, and this woman is laying on her back, just as Shannon Gilbert was found. Make of that what you will. In your packet, the picture there is actually artwork produced by Victoria. If you look, there's this horrifying monster with blood eating on the breasts of this woman who has a furry butt plug hanging out the back. She produced this art. Yeah, thanks. What text are you talking about? Thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you. You'll notice in one of the other pictures, there's a room that looks like a basement with blood all over. Sound familiar? Does it match Massapequa Park? Quite possibly. Sorry? It's hard to repeat. I'm doing it by... This is a picture of what appears to be a basement with blood all over it. Remind you of the basement in Massapequa Park? I won't show them all. I don't need to. Body of a man with the arms and legs sliced off and chopped in half. Interesting. Take a look at the neck of this person being chopped up. The neck is not just pierced, it's cut open. Think about Shannon Gilbert and her hyoid bone. Here's what she's reading. Don't be scared because I said I wanted to crack open your chest and play in your blood. I'm not a scary person. Murder is very romantic. By the way, remember, her father is looking at the same items. If you don't learn how to pull hair properly, you can easily snap someone's neck. If your communication and self-insight isn't on fucking point, dark kinks easily just become self-harm or abuse. If you tie the rope without EMT shears in reach, you're trying irresponsibly. If you're playing with drowning or waterboarding, a 2-second fuck up can kill. The cannibal picture. Here they are feasting on human flesh. And there's the human flesh being taken apart for food. Reading. It's entitled Brutalized, brackets, Hot Sexy. Being drowned in a bathtub, bonus points if it's full blood. Throat bit and crushed in someone's teeth. Arm skinned and someone pulling on your tendons to force your fingers to move. Hands being stepped on and broken. Making out with mouths full of blood. Bonus points if it's your blood and you're forced to drink it. Stabbed while in a crushing embrace that starts to break your ribs. Wrapped in electric barbed wire. High-powered shock collar and muzzle. Sedation. Enough to be in a dreamy haze while you're taken apart. Blindfolded, muzzle tied down while someone cuts you open and plays with your organs. Arms strapped down, multiple needles left in, full of drugs, while your killer explains the plans for your tonight as they prepare your body. Punched in the mouth, bruises, body cut up, played with, and left broken to die. And then the instruments. Just like the instruments described in what the district attorney released of Mr. Heuermann's work. These are posts that she repost these? These are posts, circulated by blogs that she follows. Listen, yes, it's technically illegal to keep a person chained to the wall in your basement. Use their holes, H-O-L-E-S, holes, whenever you please, and treat them as nothing but an object for your pleasure. But you're not a person, so what's the problem? These are sex toys. These are for sex, a bone saw. He had a collection of these items or similar items. Chains with points, hard points. He used hard points. He refers to it. The inside of my brain looks like this: a basement with a bed and blood all over it. Massapequa Park. Now take those things that I've just shown you, and let me read you this first, and then I have something else I want to tell you.
Are they quotes from her?
These are quotes from what she's reading, okay? By the way, we don't have more than what I'm showing you for one very good reason. We have found that it appears that she erased all of her sites that she had, all of her social media. She just missed these ones. And her mother, we tried to get her mother's similarly, all erased, except for Twitter. Now, the district attorney himself makes a list in his latest indictment papers of what Rex Heuermann is looking at. And amongst them, there are 26 of them that he lists, but I'll just hit some that matter in relation to these photos and what was said on the blogs that she was looking at. Quote, girl begging for rape porn. Teen girl begging for rape porn. Pretty girl with bruised face porn. Remember the picture of the bruised face woman or girl in his house. Torture redhead porn. She's a redhead, the daughter. 10-year-old schoolgirl. Lips cut off. Skinny redhead tied up and raped. Girl hog-tied torture porn. Match what you heard there with what you've seen here and heard from what she said. And they're almost the same, or they are the same. Mr. Tierney says, newly discovered searches include, these are the films he's looking at, or that Heuermann's looking at. Hung by tits. Ball gag. And we have pictures that she was looking at of ball gags with blood all over the face of the person who has it. They were both interested in ball gags. Medieval torture of women speaks for itself. Long Island Mistress BDSM. We also know all these pictures speaks for themselves as BDSM, and we know that Heuermann spent time, we know now, in Manhattan clubs in BDSM situations. For example, a place called Pandora's Box. When you take all of these things collectively, are you going to be able to reasonably say, well, just circumstantial evidence? Who knows whether the mother really knew what was going on in the house? Who knows whether Mr. Heuermann had anything to do with what happened to his daughter? You can take one inference is that this poor girl was brought up in this sickness. And don't think for 1 minute, from what you now know, that Rex Heuermann was cutting people up, removing their hands and heads and so on, just so that he could avoid identification. That isn't even true. We know he left the tattoos on, he sliced them up. He knew very well he could have just cut them off, and he didn't. He's not caring too much about identification, although he is that too. He's enjoying what he's doing. Look at what he is reading, what his daughter is reading, what they're observing. It's BDSM to the max. And it's demonic. How else do you describe it? This house, are you surprised at the way it looked? It matches the demonic life that they're living there. Why do you think they haven't left after they know that murdered bodies were in that home? There's much more to be said on that. I say to you, you draw the inferences. You draw the inferences. But how can you escape some meaning to what we have discovered? How can you escape it? As I said, you can tell from this, we're the gatekeepers. We're in pursuit of the killers. We know from one witness that I've already produced to the district attorney's office, who was vetted by Commissioner Rodney Harrison, police commissioner, and found to be credible. We know that Shannon Gilbert was in the Sayville Motor Lodge with Rex Heuermann. There's a connection between her and him. We know something that has never to this day been addressed by the Heuermann family lawyers, nor for that matter by the district attorney. And that is that I was able in January to check out the alibi that Mrs. Heuermann and children were in Atlantic City when Maureen Brainerd Barnes disappeared in July of 2007. We talked to the night manager, and I say we, myself and 3 witnesses who are present here today, 3 eyewitnesses. We spoke to the night manager for that hotel, and we checked out whether or not the Heuermann family had checked in when they would have had the alibi. They did not. They checked in not on on July 6th. They checked in on July 17th. And she read it to us off the computer that she had in front of her twice. And I brought this up, and you heard the lawyers, Mr. Matev and Mr. Macedonio, say, John Ray's a liar, and they'll prove it. That was 200 and some, how many days ago now? Since January? You never heard another word from them, did you? And I'm awaiting the district attorneys look into that. We're the gatekeepers for all the facts and circumstances. And remember what the commissioner of Suffolk County Police Department said. If you don't want to talk to the police for any reason, call John Ray. I'm operating under that official blessing, and I'm not giving up, and you can see why. These people are in our society. They're cannibals. They're monsters. They're human devils. They're evil. The Heuermanns are part of that package. Now, with me, I mentioned Dr. Brucato, who's here to address some of the things that I have just now mentioned. Gary?
First of all, is everyone hearing me all right? Everyone hearing me well? First of all, thank you to Mr. Ray and his team and to all of you. And I'll begin my comments by saying that it is important that we dedicate everything we're doing today to the victims. I think it's very important to do that, to remember that we're not interested in the titillating details of what an offender has done as much as trying to prevent those horrible things from happening in the future by understanding these people. I think it's also important to mention that I have not examined Mr. Heuermann, his daughter, his wife, or any other member of the family. And the comments I'm going to make are general about the trends in these kinds of offenders and what we might be able to gauge about someone who may be potentially joining the ranks of that type of individual here. First of all, when people are charged with offenses, repeat murder, you don't get hauled into court, under a charge of serial killing, right? But it is important to understand when there is a pattern of serial killing that is alleged, we can learn a great deal about what the likely motive is of the individual and understand a lot about the individual's psychology. The vast majority of people who meet criteria for serial killing are sexually motivated. And I want you to understand that we have to envision a circle in which there are individuals that repetitively commit sexual assault against other individuals, but don't kill. Within that circle, there's a smaller group of individuals who are sadistic toward the individuals that they're assaulting, brutalizing them in every imaginable way, but do not kill them. Within that circle, there's a smaller group that proceed to actually kill the individuals, sometimes to get rid of witnesses, sometimes because the force is too much and someone passes away, and sometimes because this now becomes part of the thrill. But within that circle is the rarest of all, which is a sexually sadistic serial killer who kills after protracted, prolonged torture in every imaginable way. And it is in that tiny circle that we would be placing Mr. Heuermann if he is indeed guilty. It is important to understand that individuals like that are motivated partially by sadism and partially by a kind of intellectual boredom, a stimulation. People of that type, for example, can look at all kinds of things and collect all kinds of things and do all kinds of things to keep it interesting for themselves. And as a consequence, evolve and do all manner of things to their victims to learn about what happens to bodies, to see what causes the greatest thrill. Now, regarding the things that have been spoken about today, it is important to understand that about 80%, it is estimated, of serial killers operate alone. But that leaves, by some estimates, 20% that do operate with other people. Though it can be a group of people that are all interested in the same perversions. That can be a wife or a partner, significant other. That can be one's own child. In that small circle of cases, which incidentally do not include any in the state of New York that I'm aware of prior to this, where an individual actually has what may be a torture chamber or an isolated place where individuals are brought. For example, you remember from the document reference to hard points. Hard points are those little screws that you hang a variety of tools on, like in a garage. You have to imagine a situation in which a woman would be knocked out and wake up in that kind of chamber with all those instruments around her to be used like a kid in a candy box for sadism and experimentation repetitively. And you have to imagine the potential that that's inside a soundproofed room in one's own home. The rarity of that cannot be emphasized enough. Now, some cases that might be instructive for people to look into, the most important, I think, being the case of David Parker Ray, the sexually sadistic serial killer who had a $100,000 torture chamber soundproofed inside a trailer where women were brought by his own daughter sometimes after she had knocked them out for participation in perversions. Another case you may want to look at is the case of John Wayne Gacy, the sexually sadistic serial killer of boys and young men, because until recently it was thought that he was a lone wolf. And some evidence has emerged more recently that he may have been part of a network that was feeding victims to him. And there are many serial killers of that type, we are learning. There is a tendency to think that these types are lone wolves who can't have relationships with others or engage in crimes with other people. Regarding the things that were spoken about today, as a psychologist, I think it would be important for me to emphasize that we have no clear accusations or proof one way or the other, but there are certainly suggestions that I think must be taken seriously, and there would be precedent for this kind of thing based on other cases. Approximately 1 in 5, according to some experts, of these serial killers do operate that way with other people. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll also say at the end, I'll also like to take a very quick moment to say that I am a member of the Cold Case Foundation on the expert panel. I'll clarify, because I know some people are aware of the name of John Douglas coming up in the bail document as the author of 2 of the books studied allegedly by Heuermann. He is the chairman emeritus of the Cold Case Foundation, which is a group of experts that offers help, assistance to law enforcement, to individuals that petition, families that petition to help solve cold cases. I am sure, given that the average age of onset for people who commit these offenses is about 26, and they don't tend to stop until eliminated or arrested, you can imagine that it would be very improbable that there are only 6 victims in this case. And you can imagine that these individuals would have been kept for some time prior to their killing. I am sure that there are loads of people out there, probably in multiple states, who have encountered this individual, who have potentially escaped this individual, who may have actually been assaulted by the individual or engaged in perverse actions, or may have information on homicides that might in the future be alleged. I would encourage you to please be unafraid to consider prayerfully, thoughtfully reaching out to a group like the Cold Case Foundation, to someone like Mr. Ray, to law enforcement, because when this story is all over, I suspect it will be much more complicated and horrifying than it even appears to be now. Thank you.
What do you make of the father?
What's that? One more.
Please.
We'll do it. Okay. Just keep in mind one or two more things. In the packet that I gave you, the first packet, the black and white, the pictures on the back and are pictures from the book that was on the kitchen table when the police entered in the last warrant, and when Victoria was home alone. That book speaks of death scenes, and those are real gore, real pictures of sex workers chopped up. That's what she had on her kitchen table, and her lawyers say they don't know how to explain it. That's in this too. And one more thing, and that is that after this, can anybody reasonably infer, as we've heard over and over again to the contrary, can anybody reasonably now infer that this man was leading a double life at home? There was no double life. Now we'll answer questions.
So is it likely that he essentially psychologically trained his daughter to become a serial killer, if that's in the realm of possibility?
I can't speak to this particular case because I have not examined anyone involved. And so far, what we have here is circumstantial things that are certainly worth contemplating. I'll say this: among the individuals that do participate with serial killer family members or friends or associates, they seem to divide up into different groups. Some of them have their own perversions and are collaborating because they, in a group, are able to enjoy these things together. And some of them are individuals who have been traumatized or exposed repetitively to these kinds of things and are joining in with the offender, sometimes as a kind of Stockholm syndrome or attempt to survive, sometimes because it's been so desensitized for them that it's become normal in the home or environment in which they're operating. And sometimes there's no relation, that they just are interested in these kinds of unusual things on their own. But you have to take that on a case-by-case basis, and I think it's certainly worth thinking about, because I think we'd agree that what we're seeing here is certainly disturbing.
In his manifest, he used the term play, and apparently Victoria used the same terminology.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that?
Well, it gets to the point that I raised earlier about a lot of this being about stimulation and excitement and fun for these individuals. And the idea is to extend, in the fantasy at least, to extend what is happening to the individual out of a kind of curiosity and amusement, and to keep heightening the thrill the way somebody, for instance, with a drug addiction might do, to need a greater and greater high. And some people can have fantasies like that and leave them at the level of fantasy. And some individuals need to actually spill over into enacting those fantasies. But it's impossible to say, how many people have only the fantasies and how many actually spill over. But fantasies are certainly disturbing. Sorry.
And share those fantasies with a family member?
Well, first of all, there are some situations I'm aware of where that happens, where, as I said, there is normalization within a home to the point that that can happen. But the themes that are here are extreme, even for people who have sexualized or aggressive fantasies, because we're seeing here themes of things like cannibalization, fornication with body parts, dismemberment, mutilation, things like that. It's not just bondage fantasies. It extends all the way over into things that are far more horrifying. And for those things to be normalized, you would have to think about the kind of material a person is exposed to, the kind of pornography they might be exposed to, the kind of talk, books, etc. But I think the jury is out on what this is about. But it's certainly worth thinking about.
John, I apologize. This is obviously very disturbing to all of us, but she's still young. Do you think she was involved in any of the murders? Like the go-go store, helped him at all? Or are you just saying that she may have been doing something, thinking about in the future? That's not
I am not there. I was never there. The police alone have been there in Massapequa Park House. I don't know what else they know. What I'm saying we can infer from this, and it's not the only inference, but it's a very strong inference, is that this girl was made over the course of years somehow to become accustomed to liking what you see here. And that didn't just happen in the air. That happened because somebody did something. And, you can take it from there, take the rest from there. That's what I'm saying. She certainly falls within the circle of suspicion as to some activity that's involved here, not least because we know that her hairs are found on the dead bodies.
there was no double life like you suggest, are there civil legal ramifications?
There certainly could be civil legal ramifications for the Heuermann family, each of them. You know, they're pretty extensive, I imagine. I'm not looking to pursue them myself. That's not, I'm not looking to sue them or have a civil case against them. It's nothing to do with me. But there could very well be, yes.
John, are you saying that you believe that Shannon Gilbert was a victim of Heuermann?
I'm not saying that Shannon Gilbert was certainly a victim of Heuermann. I am saying what we do know. And we know if that witness who was credible told the truth, the taxi driver, that Heuermann knew Shannon Gilbert. That he and that makes a lot of sense. If we follow the trail of Heuermann, I know that Heuermann was a very gregarious fellow from the witnesses I've talked to who've come and talked to me and given me statements. And I know that he spent a lot of time in various bars and places where there were strippers and dancers and that sort of thing around Long Island and in New York City. The chances that he came across Shannon Gilbert, besides what the taxi cab driver said, are excellent. She also has a Massapequa entry in her book that we found, her notebook of scheduling. And I point out another thing. That doesn't preclude anything I've said so far regarding my lawsuit that's continuing as we speak. There's connections that could be made there. We don't know. I'm not the police. If they come to me, I'll certainly report them. But it does strike me that when Shannon Gilbert says, the first thing she says on the 911 tapes is, someone is after me. Someone is after me. That means she's being chased. She's being stalked. Rex Heuermann was a stalker. You may remember from the beginning, before I ever knew of Rex Heuermann, I said publicly over and over, there's a hunter involved in this case. Someone was hunting her. He's a hunter. Rex Heuermann turns out to be a very avid hunter. And he belonged to a variety of rifle clubs. We saw a picture, I think, Newsday published. But there's more than that. If you look at the schedule that Ray Tierney put out, you can see that Heuermann, in a period of 2 weeks, was at 3 different hunt clubs. He's a real hunter. He's got 300 guns to do that. I have 3 eyewitnesses who say that he pulled pistols on them. One who says that he shot her right across the back of the neck. He's a hunter with guns. Who knows what else? Start to put those pieces together.
The DA said that the hairs found that matched Victoria's were transferred from Rex to the victim.
I don't think the DA said that the hairs were actually transferred. He speculated that they were transferred. The hairs transferred from Rex Heuermann to the body the hairs that belong to the daughter and the mother. He's speculating at that. He has no way of knowing that for certain. But now when you consider what you've seen and what you know, that might tip the card a little bit in favor of the fact that there might be more to it than just that they fell off of Heuermann, especially when you notice from the equipment that he took was designed, part of it, to clean up the hairs. And he even said so, and to wear a hairnet.
John, a lot of this art is disturbingly similar to the Gilgo victims, but as far as we can see, none of it was actually made by Victoria Heuermann. Did you look into who the creators of this art might have been?
Yeah, we know that they create this atrocious art for a living, but you're not quite right. Take a look at what I showed you earlier. She created the monster that's eating a woman's breasts with a furry butt plug in the picture. She created that, and that was in line with everything else. So I can't agree with you there. She's in this art. I cannot hear you, Danielle. What I did was, with this particular information, I notified Ray Tierney. I wrote him a letter, invited his detectives to come here if he wished to the press conference, and invited him to call me so I could do so. I have not heard from him. So we're just going forward with what we have. I at every step of the way in this case, I have cooperated with the authorities. I have given them what I'm entitled to give, from other witnesses. The witnesses who come to me, if they don't want their information turned over to the police, I don't do it. But if they give me permission, I always do it. I believe that the proper authority for properly investigating this and getting to the truth is the task force. We good?
Mr. Ray, you said countless times that all this is for justice for the victim. How is showing these images, just to sum it up, justice for the victim?
Showing these images teaches us that there is a likely connection between Rex Heuermann and his family in these crimes that have been committed, and that the truth is going to reveal that. We don't know how far those connections reach. We do know if they do reach through the family, number one, he's not isolated. He's not acting alone. Number two, therefore, he is not, as I said before, living two lives. But number three, we should start to look at his wife, his daughter, where they went, who they met with. Things, it opens up this door. I have information. I know where his wife went sometimes. So that whole door is now opened. And there's one inference from at least some of the witchcraft things she talked about in her paperwork and so on. There's an inference. It's one inference of many that there's more than just them, that they're involved with other people in this as well. That needs to be looked at. These people didn't tell the truth. They're misleading us.
So basically, this portrait was created by Victoria. Of all that you've shown us, this is the one she created. Is that correct?
Yeah, the picture of the monster and the woman that I mentioned is created by Victoria. Everything else she erased. We don't know what else there is, but we do know that.
So was this found in the house and taken out by detectives?
I don't believe it was found in the house, but I don't have their inventory. I don't know. But that's on, we connected it, as Lena has told you and explained to you, and we're giving you that explanation in detail for your use because I know it was highly technical. You can see that she can connect that with the other things that Victoria was looking at.
Are you sure she created it and not just posted it?
Her signature actually appears on it.
Doc,
Okay.
can you just say and spell your name?
Yeah, sure. I'm John Ray, Johnray. Now the doctor.
Dr. Gary Brucato, Gary, B as in boy, Rucato.
And Doctor, you were at Boston College. If you can just tell us your credentials again.
Sure. I'm currently a visiting scholar at Boston College, where I conduct forensic research with Dr. Ann Burgess. And I'm in private forensic practice, and I'm in private practice for general psychotherapy at Clarity Therapy in New York City. I'm a clinical psychologist and an author and researcher specializing in violent crime and severe mental illness.
If you need a packet, if you didn't get one, just give us your email. We'll give it to you. We have it. So you can have everything. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's it for the questions. They just there's a little bit of small talk, but nothing more. So whilst this was going on, I have been flashing this screenshot up periodically whilst the presser was playing. I've been monitoring what's going on Twitter, and JB Bruno, who is the guy from WFLA whose stream this was, I'll put this link to the press conference in the chat, so if anybody wants to go and watch it again, the press conference starts at 34 minutes in. Anyway, JB commented on Twitter and said, just now, Suffolk County PD headquarters responded to our request for comment about today's presser on Rex Heuermann's daughter by attorney John Ray in the Long Island serial killings. And this was the quote from the cops. No one from the PD was there and we are not commenting. So it's a very firm no comment. Law enforcement were invited to this press conference and they didn't attend. And I think there's a, I think that sends a message, doesn't it? But yeah, so I thought I'd just point that out. And I'm going to start the poll now. So if you want to vote in this poll, it's about to start now. Does this evidence implicate Victoria Heuermann in Rex's alleged crimes? Yes or no? So there's the poll. And I'll keep that going until the end of the live stream. But I'm going to give you my opinion on this. All right. So I said I'd keep my opinion till the end because not everybody had seen this. This press conference, for those who came in partway through, attorney John Ray is an attorney that has represented Shannon Gilbert's family. Shannon Gilbert being one of the women that was found near Gilgo Beach. She's one that is alleged to have died accidentally, but it was the search for her that basically kick-started the finding of all these bodies that are there, some of whom have not been implicated or attributed to Rex. He's not been charged with some of them. And there's still 3 bodies that were found on Gilgo Beach that are, there's 2 Jane Does, a woman and her toddler daughter, and then a John Doe, a young Asian male. They've never been identified. Now, John Ray also represents some of the people who have alleged to have survived Rex Heuermann. And a few months ago, John Ray did a press conference. I streamed it here on this channel. It was either on this channel or on Michelle Walks, but it'll be in my Rex Heuermann playlist. I've got a playlist for this. And he was implicating Rex's wife in taking part in consensual activities like swinging. And he, that set the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit. But law enforcement have never, in the slightest bit, not the slightest bit, implicated Rex's wife or any of his family, including Victoria, his daughter, in any of Rex's activities. In fact, in the latest round of documents, which I read on this channel, was it this channel on Michelle Walks, or however, mate, just a few days ago, I read all the documents that came out with the new charges. So he was charged with 4. He was actually charged with 3 of the Gilgo Beach victims last year. Then, January of this year, he was charged with the 4th. And just recently, just last week, he was charged with another 2. So Rex now is charged with 6 victims, 2 of whom weren't found on Gilgo Beach. They were found elsewhere. And there's another one called Valerie Mack, who I think he's going to be charged with. I think they're getting their ducks in a row. I think they will charge him with Valerie Mack because the situation of the body and where her body was found is very similar to one of the other victims. So I think there'll be a 7th. So if you watched those live streams that I did a few days ago, you'll know that law enforcement, in putting that documentation together, were very, very careful not to implicate any of his family members. So we have to make that clear absolutely from the outset, that law enforcement have refused to comment and they have not implicated any of the family members, including his wife, his daughter, his brother, or any other members of his family. So let's be very, very clear. Thank you, Jackie, for the $24.99 Canadian dollars. And thank you for those super chats that came in during the press conference. I put them on the screen, but I didn't want to, excuse me, I didn't want to interrupt the press conference for those that hadn't seen it. I just wanted to play it straight through. All right, so here's my opinion. Look, many thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, probably millions of people worldwide have got fantasies that are, let's say, for example, outside of the norm. We might call them alternative lifestyles. We might call them, you know, pushing the boundaries. But the fantasies that are not shared by the majority of people. They've got a very, you know, niche market, so to speak. So alongside those kinds of artwork that John Ray was showing and describing, and some of it, we didn't see the big pictures. The big pictures were from other people's art that Victoria was sharing on her social media. But there was, in the packets that were given out to the press, and I'd like to get my hands on one of those packets to actually have a look at Victoria's artwork. So some of Victoria's artwork was contained in those packets, so we didn't see those clearly. But Victoria is an art graduate. She did art at college. And art, look, art is not illegal. I say that actually because in UK law, actually, it is illegal to produce art, whether it's cartoons, paintings, that depict child abuse, that depict child sexual abuse. So actually, in my country, some art is illegal. You can't produce pornographic images depicting children or childlike figures, even in cartoons. All right, so, but the artwork that was displayed is distasteful to probably most people. It's disturbing to most people, but it's not illegal. And I'd actually like to hear from the artists whose work he showed, to see what meaning they had behind it. Because quite often art can be disturbing and distasteful, but the artist has a very different message than what the majority of people see in that art, right? So I wouldn't have had a problem at all with Victoria Heuermann sharing artwork and making her own artwork that depicted disturbing, unusual, fantasy material, right? The hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people worldwide explore dark fantasies, either in their own head or with a consenting partner. The vast majority of people with dark or alternative fantasies don't ever share them with anybody. Some do, and some find a niche pocket of people who share consensually their kinks, their fetishes. And I don't have any problem with that. Just because I don't like certain things or wouldn't partake in certain things doesn't mean that you shouldn't, right? As long as it's consensual, as long as everybody is an adult and everybody's human, right? Then I don't have a problem with it. You go and do you, right? Leave me out of it, but you go and do you. That's fine. So if Victoria Heuermann likes kind of the dark, disturbing artwork that she produces and she shares on social media, well, all power to her, right? Whatever that means to her, fair dues. However, However, Victoria Heuermann isn't just anybody. It appears that Victoria Heuermann is the daughter of a serial killer. Now, the task force that have been working on putting cases together against Rex Heuermann, they're currently at 6 victims, as I said, but there's going to be more. There's definitely going to be more. There'll definitely be Valerie Mack. And I bet you any money, Rex Heuermann, they may not even be able to pin everyone on him, but I would imagine that all of the Gilgo Beach victims, even those that have not been identified, are Rex. I would put money on it. Whether law enforcement could prove it, though, is another matter, because some of these bodies, you know, they go back many years. Now, Victoria Heuermann is just 27 years old right now. Right now. So she was maybe in her early 20s when she did her art degree. I don't know when she produced these paintings, how long she's been sharing this stuff and partaking in this kind of fantasy fan fiction type stuff on social media. We don't know. We don't even know, let's put it this way, we don't even know whether every piece that was shared on that social media was actually Victoria Heuermann. Like, I haven't seen her social media to say, look, this is definitely her. I'm assuming that John Ray does have some evidence that it's actually her beyond, oh, well, it had the same profile picture as her LinkedIn. and things like, you know, oh, well, you know, she wears some, you know, alternative clothing. That's a reach. If we're saying that the artwork's a reach, then definitely what she chooses to wear is a massive reach. Massive reach. But I'll say, however, again, she is the daughter of a serial killer. And we have to look at her life as one of potentially a victim. As John Ray said himself right at the beginning of the press conference, he said, she's a victim. And even if nothing ever untoward happened to her, like I saw a lot of people in the chat saying, you know, was she groomed and blah, blah, blah. You know, was she abused? We don't know. We don't know because she's never spoken. She's never spoken out. So we don't know. We don't know anything about what her life was like. We do not know. John Ray seems to think that Asa was involved in the consensual swinging going back to the 1990s. But it was before Victoria was even born. Like, one of the victims that Rex has been charged with dates back to 1993. Victoria wasn't even born in 1993. She was a little girl when the Gilgo Beach murders took place. So I absolutely do not believe that Victoria Heuermann was involved in any of the murders that Rex is currently charged with. That's just my opinion, and I might be proved wrong, but she was too young, in my opinion. She was a little girl when some of those women died. Right. And the fact that Asa may have been involved in swinging, well, again, you do you. You do you. If it's consensual, if everyone's an adult. Now, when it crosses the line, as it possibly did with the young woman that was apparently left there and died and was murdered, well, that crossed the line. As the very second that one person involved is no longer consensual, then it's crossed the line, obviously. Any situation where somebody no longer consents, it's crossed the line, whether it involves 2 people or whether it involves 20 people. And I don't think I need to spell that out, do I? I don't think I need to tell you that. So, did this swinging cross the line? Maybe, yeah. If so, to what extent was Asa involved in it or knew about it? All right, maybe it started off consensual, and maybe Asa had the line that she drew, and maybe Rex went far beyond that. Now, the vast majority of people who have dark fantasies or unusual fantasies, unusual fetishes, are into swinging and that kind of thing, never ever cross the line, never ever do anything that's illegal, never ever do anything that would put someone else knowingly in danger. Right? That has to be made as clear as I can make it. We're talking about the small minority of the minority when we get into, the mind of someone like Rex Heuermann. He is an aberration. He's gone way beyond what the vast majority of even murderers will do. Right? He's up there. And one of my live streams that I titled, and I said, mark my words, he will, when all's said and done, he will be the worst serial killer of our time. The stuff that they've got on him now, I think, is the tip of the iceberg. I think there are many, many, many more victims. So Victoria Heuermann being his daughter concerns me. For her, I don't think for 1 second that she was involved in any of the murders that he's currently been charged with. My caveat, though, is that we don't know what he's been doing more recently. We don't know if he stopped killing at Gilgo Beach. We don't know whether he's carried on killing and just dumping the bodies elsewhere, either elsewhere in New York State or elsewhere in other states. We have no idea. So if, and this is a massive if Victoria Heuermann was involved, then it's going to be in cases that are way more recent than what he's currently being charged with. So at this moment in time, there is no evidence whatsoever that implicates, in my opinion, that implicates Victoria Heuermann in any of Rex's crimes. Are the cops looking into it? Of course they are, right? They've taken that house apart. They'll have Victoria Heuermann's social media. They'll know about all the stuff that John Ray has found. They'll know about it all, but none of it's illegal. And she can't be charged for having fantasies. She can't be charged for liking certain pieces of art. She can't, because it's not illegal. Nothing that he showed is illegal. Who says I'm using psychology? I'm just giving my opinion. Just giving my opinion. Did I say that I'm giving a professional opinion as a psychologist? No, I didn't. I'm giving my opinion. Very different than a professional opinion. Thank you. Okay. So could it be possible that she has been groomed and that she has at some point crossed the line herself and has done stuff with her dad in more recent years? Yeah, absolutely. Is there any evidence of that right here, right now? No, none. And the art that she likes is concerning, given that she's the daughter of a serial killer. And that's it, period. I wouldn't be concerned at all. If this was art from just Joe or Joanne blogs down the road, I'd be like, well, you're into some weird stuff. But would it concern me? No, it wouldn't. Not at all. Not at all. Unless there was other stuff You know, unless there were strange noises coming from their house late at night, unless there was people running, screaming from the house, unless there was other stuff, right? And then, yeah, that would be a red flag. But on its own, no. On its own, no. Not at all. But she is the daughter of a serial killer. So even though she is not involved in the crimes that Rex is currently charged with. She's too young. I'm very open to the possibility that she's been groomed and that not necessarily been abused, but that she's perhaps grown up from birth. She's grown up in a household where pornography or stuff that you wouldn't want a child to see was on display. What I'd like to know is who all was allowed in the basement, because it seems to be that it's that basement that has the vast majority of the evidence coming from it. Like when I've watched the footage of them bringing stuff out of the house, it's the basement that they've all focused on, and they've done geofizz in the yard and stuff like that. So who had access to the basement? Now, you see, there's so much we don't know. Where can we see her art? She's deleted it all off her social media, so we can't see it now. There's so much we don't know. What I'd like to know is about Rex's early life. We know nothing about him. Like, was Rex groomed? Was, the real dark stuff, like really, really dark stuff, was that approved of or on display? I shouldn't say approved of, because if you're a consenting adult, you don't need me to approve or disapprove. You don't need my opinion on it. But if there's stuff on display in a house or conversations or things that happen around children, then those children can be affected by it. So there's no gene, there's no serial killer gene. It's not like he's passed on a bad gene to Victoria. Maybe there's a genetic component somewhere along the line, but there's no single gene that makes you a serial killer. You don't just become a serial killer. You don't wake up one morning and think, hello, I'm going to be a serial killer today. It's such a rare event, thankfully. The vast majority of even people who commit murder don't go on to become a Rex Heuermann, don't go on to become a John Wayne Gacy, don't go on to become a Ted Bundy or a Jeffrey Dahmer. They don't. Those people are the worst of the worst amongst the worst. You don't wake up one day and become that person. It's a long road. And yes, it can be influenced by your childhood, but sometimes there's no one, and now I am going to just, dip into psychology here. There's no one variable that will predict who and who will not become a serial killer. There's no one variable. Every serial killer has a very different pattern in their life. There might be some commonalities, like you might say, well, they've had a bad childhood, or they were abused, or this or that or the other. But look, the thousands and millions of people are abused as children, either physically, emotionally, sexually, or all of the above. And they don't go on to become serial killers. They don't even go on to become abusers. They might have mental health concerns, some of them, not all. Many of them, even most of them, have mental health concerns, but they don't become an abuser. And So even that, saying, oh, you know, he had a terrible childhood and therefore that's the way he is. Like, no. Because for every serial killer who has a terrible childhood, I could give you 100, I could give you 1,000 other people who had worse childhoods who didn't go on to become serial killers. So I say again, from a psychological point of view, there's not one factor that will predict who becomes a serial killer and who doesn't. And that even goes for Victoria Heuermann. There isn't a gene. She's not been given faulty DNA by her dad. No. It's very complex. And just because your dad's a serial killer doesn't make you a serial killer. Doesn't. It makes you a victim because you've got to live your life knowing what your dad did, or your mother, right? Female serial killers as well. But then you get the situations where it's a true family affair. I'll give you the case of Fred and Rose West from here in the UK. If you're a UK viewer, you will know who I mean by Fred and Rose West. Now, they didn't just victimize their children and many other people. They murdered some of their kids. They abused their kids sexually. They tortured them. And they killed some of them. And buried them in the yard, buried them under the house. So, you know, Fred and Rose West are the true meaning of a horror childhood. The true meaning of a horror childhood. Now, Fred West did himself in. When he was caught, he did himself in his jail cell. Rose West is still alive. Rose West is still living out there. She was in the same prison that Myra Hindley was. She was a friend of Myra Hindley before Myra Hindley died. And again, if you're UK, you'll know who Myra Hindley is. She's the female half of the Moors murderers. All right. So I'm very open to the possibility that Victoria Heuermann in some way was groomed. Not necessarily abused by her dad, but in some way was groomed. Maybe unintentionally by the life that her dad was living. Having said that, I'm just as likely to say maybe she had no idea what her dad did. And maybe she's absolutely horrified by what her dad has done. And all of this dark art that she likes is just a personal preference. Now, some of it is a little bit too coincidental for me. But I think John Ray was reaching with a lot of what he was saying. I think he was really reaching. So at this moment in time, I cannot see any evidence that Victoria Heuermann, just from the information that he has presented, yes, it's concerning, yes, it's disturbing, yes, it's a red flag, right? But I'll bet my house that law enforcement know everything about Victoria Heuermann's preferences, what was on her social media. They'll probably know all the deleted stuff as well that she managed to delete before John Ray got his hands on it. And she's never been charged with anything. So nothing she was doing was illegal. So what John Ray presented to me wasn't compelling enough to say she's in on it. And things like, you know, one of her hairs was found on one of the bodies, one of the Gilgo bodies. Well, she was a little girl. The fact that one of her hairs was on one of the Gilgo bodies that had been out there since like 2011, she was a little girl then. You know, I'm covered in hairs. Like, if I committed a murder, they'd find me with the flaming cat hairs that are on me that I can't get off. They'd find me straight away. They'd be like, oh, we've got dog, we've got cat. Right, let's work out the breed of these animals. They'd pinpoint me. Anyhow, That's transfer. Those are transfer hairs, right? From a little girl. So even that's not compelling. But I am remaining open-minded, very much so, because thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for the $2. That's very kind of you. So, yeah, there's red flags. Yes, it's disturbing. But it doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't tell me anything other than she's got a preference for fan fiction of a very unusual kind. That's it. That's all it tells me at the moment. But if more comes out about Rex, and like I said, I want to know all about Rex. I want to know about his early childhood. I want to know whether there is a generational thing going on. And if there is, then I'd be a little bit more inclined to say, well, if Rex was groomed into unusual fetishes, then maybe she was as well. Like it's just passed down the generations, not genetically, but passed down. This family is very strange. This family is very unusual. And the children are brought up to think, you know, that there's stuff that's totally normal. So it's not stuff that they've discovered on their own. It's stuff that is completely normal to them. But even that doesn't tell me anything. Even that doesn't tell me that she's involved in serial killer activities. But if more does come out, and I truly believe more will come out, if he has continued to victimize people, is it possible Victoria knew? Yeah. Is it possible Asa knew? Yeah. Is it possible they were involved? Yeah. But we're not there yet. And John Ray said himself, he's not there either. So I'm not really sure what the point of that press conference was. I'm not sure what the point was. Like, was it to push law enforcement to do something? Because law enforcement will have all that information. The fact that they're not commenting, I don't know. I don't know what to feel about that. But I think it's very much with Rex's case, it's very much watch this space, because there will be more. I truly believe that Rex Heuermann will be the worst serial killer of our time if they keep investigating. I think he's got victims all over, wherever he's been, whatever he's been doing since the early 1990s, there will be victims. Is one of his victims Victoria? Possibly. Is she involved? Possibly. But I'm not there yet. So that's my opinion. That's my opinion. But again, I don't know what the point of the presser was. Like today, I don't know what his point was. All right, I'm going to close this poll. Let's have a look. Oh, it's close. End poll. All right, so we got 308 votes. Does this evidence implicate Victoria Heuermann in Rex's alleged crimes? So yes, 57%, no, 42%. That's interesting. That's interesting. JB on WFLA had a poll up, so I don't know what the result of his poll was, but it'd be interesting. I'm going to go and watch that, watch JB's response now. Because I watched the presser, then went straight back to the Karen Reid trial. So it'd be interesting to see whether my figures, 57 yes, 42 no, is similar to JB's, like from, you know, WFLA. Presser to lay foundations, possibly. But foundations for what? So it's a watch this space. It's a watch this space with an open mind. And let's be prepared for the worst of the worst. We haven't heard the worst yet. I'm positive we haven't heard the worst from Rex Heuermann. I don't know. So if I'm open-minded about Rex and all of the stuff still to come, I have to be open-minded also about the rest of his family, because we don't know. We don't know yet. We don't know anything sufficient to say one way or another that yes, they were involved, or at least they knew what was going on, or no, they didn't. We don't have enough data. All right, guys. So thank you for joining me. And where's the 1%? I know, yeah. I know, yeah. Sometimes the polls on YouTube don't add up to 100. I think it's because it doesn't show the percentage. I don't know. Yeah, I've noticed that before, that they add up to like 99 or 101. Sometimes you see polls and they end with 101%. So. All right, guys. So thanks for joining me. I did 2 videos today for anybody interested. I did one this morning on Sebastian Rogers, and I did one that came out this afternoon on Madeline Soto and all of that malarkey and horror from Florida. So if you've not seen those, they're only short. They're like, I think one's like 30 minutes, one's 50 minutes. So go and check those out if you've got a mind to. If you're following Sebastian's case or Madeline's case, then go and check those out. And yeah, thanks always. Thanks to the mods, as always. Thank you to those that donated. You are very kind, very generous. And yeah, it's 10:30 in the PM here. So I'm going to go and listen to JB now. So enjoy the rest of your day or your evening. Bye, guys.